Thank you for being here. My name is Elinova, and I'm a technical consultant at Quantus. So today we'll be talking about the concept of tokenizing carbon savings. But before we start, I'd like to introduce you to Quantos. So Quantos is a blockchain company that was established in 2016. We've been in the market, we've been operating in the market continuously since then. And some of our services include the concepts of asset tokenization, crypto brokerage and custodian services, IoT payments, and stablecoins. So today we'll be simply focusing on the concepts of asset tokenization and stablecoins and how they can be brought together to create a compliant, regulatory compliant carbon savings market. So what is the concept of asset tokenization? Now, have you ever heard of, let's say, the analogy that compares the blockchain system to an accounting ledger? Has anyone heard that analogy? Yeah? All right. So basically, when we think about, let's say, the blockchain being an accounting ledger, what it simply means is that the blockchain simply keeps track of who owns how much Bitcoin, how much Ethereum, or how much Algorand in that case. But when we speak about asset tokenization, what we're doing is we're creating a new asset class, and then we're teaching the blockchain to keep track of that asset class, right? So we create a new coin, we introduce it to the blockchain, and then we teach it how to keep track of it. And what does that mean? How would that happen? So with our system, like how would that happen? Let's say, imagine you have a building, a piece of art, or let's say rights to a company, right? So an entity, a trusted entity, checks if you actually do own that building or if you actually do own that piece of art. And once this is verified, then this information is recorded on the blockchain and then it's tokenized. So meaning that new tokens are created that are actually represent the real world value. And so why would you tokenize assets? Well, we think that no, it's not that we think. It's a general thing that you would want to tokenize assets because it allows you to, let's say, fractionalize ownership. Meaning that instead of, let's say, owning a whole building, you can just own a small fraction of that building, let's say 1/10,000, right? But then you still be participating in the economy of that building. It allows you to, let's say, diversify your portfolio, meaning that instead of just, let's say, committing all your money and all your life savings into one building, you can actually, let's say, split it across all the buildings in Amsterdam if that were possible. It also allows, let's say, the building to increase its liquidity, meaning that a lot of people can come in and invest in it. So it's not, let's say, bound by, let's say, whether I am successful with this investor or not. Let's say, all the population becomes the investor, and then it increases the liquidity. finally, like it's all within the same line, is that it also allows a lower entry barrier, meaning that anyone can come in and invest in the building. And let's say the investment is not only made for, let's say, millionaires or billionaires, it's made for everyone, right? Additionally, once you tokenize an asset on a blockchain, this allows you to, let's say, create a market that is settles very fast, meaning that usually on the Algorand blockchain settlement time is of 5 seconds. Now, I'm sure that anyone who has ever traded any type of asset on any exchange knows how valuable this is, right? The transaction fees are extremely cheap, right? Something in the ranges of, let's say, less than 1 cent, right? So you can execute a transaction no matter how big the size of that transaction, and yet you can still, let's say, keep low transaction fees. And then since you're doing this on the blockchain, you inherit the security of the blockchain, meaning that the system, the network, makes sure that whatever happens safely and according to rules and regulations. Additionally, once you tokenize your asset, this enables you to, let's say, create automatic enforcement over, let's say, who holds your asset and who is allowed to trade with them. Hello. So, in essence, let's say if you believe, let's say, that an actor is a bad actor and is using your asset for money laundering purposes, then you can simply, let's say, remove them, blacklist them from the people who are allowed to trade your asset with a click of a button. We'll show you how this happens. Once you tokenize your assets also on Nexus, what this creates is real-time monitoring, meaning that you can always know who holds your assets. And it increases confidence in your asset class because everything is transparent. So how would you tokenize assets with Nexus? Well, basically we have let's say, what we specialize in is integrating, let's say, the traditional financial system with the blockchain financial system. And how would that happen basically is our Nexus software comes and sits between your traditional, let's say, financial legacy system and the blockchain and public and private blockchain networks. And so it enables you to create this link, this unbreakable link that is always guaranteed by our software. And that's what Nexus gives you. Tokenizing with Nexus allows you to create, let's say, financial applications that are regulatory compliant and flexible. We are currently applying for an e-money license, and we have the capabilities, the native capabilities to digitize multiple asset types and multiple fiat currencies. Working with Nexus gives you, let's say, atomic execution. We pride ourselves at having ISO certification of 27001, which is, let's say, certification for security, and ESRA 3402, which is, let's say, a certification that allows us to offer financial services to our clients. Max here and our team of developers have worked also additionally to develop a very nice set of APIs that can easily integrate to your application. So once you want to choose to work with us, then you can simply connect your tools to our APIs and then get up and running. And we have been in production for 5 years. Some of our clients process upwards of 200,000 transactions per day. We have our processes have been audited, and our technology is built on open source. So, before I introduce you to the concept of tokenization of carbon offsets, I'd like to tell you a story about why we believe, let's say, this use case needs to be brought to life. So, in our world today, most of the goods that we consume are, let's say, mature goods. Goods that have existed on the markets for quite some time, right? And usually what happens there is, let's say, those goods have, let's say, the producers of those goods have limited range with which, let's say, they can optimize their costs or they can get creative. And if they go outside those bounds, then they simply become incompetitive, right? They simply lose their competitive edge. But let's say, those producers of those goods produce CO2. And our world today cannot, let's say, afford to keep producing CO2 the way we have been doing it for the 100 years. So what do we have to do? We should allow, let's say, those companies to still be competitive, because if, let's say, we enforce regulation that, let's say, makes them lose their competitive edge, then simply the economy will move to somewhere else. But then they still have to, let's say, participate in cleaning up the environment. And this is why we believe in the concept of carbon offsets. And our Nexus technology enables you to do this in a very, let's say, elegant and beautiful manner, at least according to me. So how would that happen, basically? Right? So on the one hand, we have, let's say, the producers of consumer goods that create CO2. And on the other hand, we have, let's say, a forester who's taking care of a forest in Germany, perhaps, or in the Amazon, or perhaps in India, right? This guy needs to get paid also. We need to make it attractive for him to take care of that forest. We need to make it attractive for him, let's say, for someone to build a solar farm or a wind farm. Right? So how would we make that attractive for him? We need to pay them. We need to, let's say, enable them to keep on doing these actions without having to, let's say, suffer economic burdens. And so what we can do is we can allow, let's say, those people, those companies that are actually investing in making our environment cleaner, and allow them to tokenize, let's say, the benefit of their projects, right? So they come in, they tell us that, okay, I'm taking care of this forest. This forest has the capacity to absorb 100,000 tons of CO2. So let's tokenize those 100,000 tons of CO2, and let's make them tradable on the blockchain. And so let's say the companies on the other side are still making profit, are still allowed to be competitive, but then they are able to share that profit with the company, with the people that are, let's say, taking care of forests, of solar farms, so on and so forth. Right? So that's the concept of carbon offsets. Now, an interesting new concept that's being developed, with which, let's say, some of our partners that we are working with have introduced us to, is the concept of carbon insets. And basically, carbon insets is a new accounting method that was created, right? Because we now realize that, okay, even though we want to allow you to keep being, let's say, economically competitive, but then we still have to, let's say, create ways that enable you to create change within your own industry, right? So let's say you are a logistics company. You can produce CO2 and then go and offset it by paying someone to take care of a forest in Germany. But what if I told you that you can actually ask your customers to pay you to switch from, let's say, your normal vehicles to electric vehicles? So you, let's say, create a positive impact within, let's say, your industry. You have, let's say, vehicles that run on normal fuel and you want to switch to electric vehicles, and this has a cost associated with it. But this also has a benefit that people are willing to invest in, which is, let's say, the reduction of CO2. So you can go ahead and tell your customers that, okay, so I want to buy 10 new electric vehicles, and these 10 new electric vehicles will allow me to produce, let's say, 2,000 tons of CO2 less per year, whatever, right? And so your customers will be willing to pay you for that because they want to, let's say, invest in brands that are actually keeping the environment clean and that are actually, let's say, making sure that our our planet Earth is still there, that Amsterdam is still here after 100 years, right? So what happens is we allow them to tokenize, let's say, the difference, the carbon savings that they create. So we allow them to make this carbon savings into something that can be seen and publicly audited on the network. And then they submit those calculations, those savings, to a party that actually verifies that, okay, these guys are really serious. They're actually switching from their vehicles, let's say, from normal vehicles that run on fuel to vehicles that run on electric vehicles. And then they measure, let's say, those trusted parties measure, let's say, the difference, the positive impact that's being created, and allows, let's say, the company to sell it, meaning that they can subsidize switching to electric vehicles directly from their consumers. So their consumers would be paying them for them to operate electric vehicles. And this is something that's wonderful, right? Imagine if this would happen. I think that all companies would be willing to, let's say, switch to electric vehicles, right? Now, tokenizing money, also known as stablecoin as a service. This is something that Quantos takes pride in offering because what we offer you is a real stablecoin. So most of the stablecoins that you hear on the market today are cryptocurrencies, right? They're not really stablecoins. What we offer you is a real stablecoin that is compliant with the MiCA regulation, that is compliant with EU regulation, and that actually enables you to create a trusted business. This is important. All right, so how would that happen? So basically, a customer willing to buy a stable coin from an issuer would send money to the issuer's bank account, right? The issuer would know, through our Nexus system, the issuer would be able to know that customer, let's say Alice, sent 100 euros to issuer Bob. And then through our Nexus system, stable coins that have the same value of the money that has been, let's say, sent to the bank account are created on the blockchain and then returned to Alice. So Alice, let's say, sends 100 euros to the issuer on the banking system through Nexus. The issuer then sends back the equivalent 100 euros worth of tokens back to, let's say, Alice. And then Alice has tokens that are actually really worth 100 euros, right? Not someone telling you that this is worth 100 euros. And then the customer can then go ahead and use those tokens, let's say within certain rules and regulations on public blockchains. He can interact with services and do whatever he wants, right? And then let's say the customer no longer wants to use, let's say, digital tokens. So what would he do? Simply saying, he would then send back, let's say, those tokens to the issuer. The Nexus system would burn those tokens, take them out of circulation, and then send back the fiat currency, the equivalent fiat currency, back to the customer. So we always maintain, let's say, the relationship between how much money exists on a bank account and how much tokens are created. And this is always maintained through our Nexus system. And that's, I think, in my opinion, is something that's very valuable. I hope you see it the same way. Now, the interesting point. What if I told you that you can actually combine those two concepts? The concept of tokenizing carbon savings and the concept of, let's say, creating stable coins, bringing them together, what you would have is a regulatory compliant carbon trading market. This is something that's very interesting because basically your customers would be paying with a stable coin that has real value and then paying for carbon savings that are actually enabling the environment. This is very interesting because if any of you are familiar with the way, let's say, current carbon trading is happening, if, let's say, you want to trade in carbon credits, you have to connect to a centralized exchange that is very difficult to connect to. Sometimes you even have to parse HTML. You have to, let's say, write very primitive code that is very rudimentary and that's very, let's say, unfriendly. But with this system, anyone can have a wallet, automatically start trading with carbon savings, and enable the people that are actually trying to save our environment. That was the presentation about the concept of carbon savings. Now a bit about history about Quantos. So as you've seen, we started operating since December 2015. We have worked with quite a few customers during our journey. Bitcoin Suisse is we started with them in 2016. We started also with connected chains. We've proudly partnered with BDO and BankFink to issue our stablecoin as a service solution. We have our partners in EasyCoin that are operating an exchange in the Middle East. And for our enterprise blockchain system, or blockchain projects, we have worked with many customers, as you see, Porsche, Airbus, the Port of Rotterdam, Algorand blockchain. So we have some quite a nice list of names here on this slide. And I'm really like this slide because it shows that, say, that Nexus has a history. It is trusted by its partners. Customers, our partners like to work with us because they trust that we can deliver their project to them. And this is our team. We're a very international team. We have 9 nationalities, but we're still a Dutch company. We have 9 nationalities. Our CTO here is Gaston Hendricks. He's been working in the blockchain space since 2011. Max, our API genius, is also here. And Ansi, our colleague from India, is also here. Hi, Ansi. All right. So tokenize your assets today so you can thrive tomorrow. If you're interested in this concept, please feel free to reach out to my manager, Henri de Jong, or me on either, let's say, LinkedIn or our emails, or through, let's say, the Quantos website. Thank you very much for your time. Do we have any questions, Max? Do we have any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Did you ever work with Porsche? Did you think that Porsche would be happy with me if I were to tell you what were their projects that they did? Yeah.
It's about connected car and car being able to pay independently for microchips. So whether it be charging, whether it be parking, or even much smaller products. We want to use the radio. It's a paper. And we want to have air conditioning. All that kind of concept experiment. And you can experience was like bigger institutions because I work for China, and we're always trying to find within solutions. But we always struggle because we how could we make it, how could we leave it on top of just supply chain? Because again, supply chain and reduction emissions is very big for our even if any class of use cases from which you have very nice not markets. It's the project with the concept, and that's a very nice example. Because of the that you give the product or the transportation methods temporary ownership over the products. And so you really revert the financial flows in the system. We also had a project with B. Brown. So company producing medical instruments. And also the concept was about also reverting the financial flows. So instead of having ownership on the machine owns itself and what could be paid in microtransactions for servers. And one of the things we also do, for example, in manufacturing, and so in the factory, the machines manufacturing the products. What if you give each of these machines the walls and it reads, so the product pays during the production for each step in the production, and the machine makes money or not. And if the machine doesn't make money, apparently it's not a good machine or it's not an efficient part of the process. And these are very concepts that are very much in the innovative phase. And the most important there is to be able to have micro payments with very low fees, because there will be many very small transactions in this kind of systems. And that's what, together with the first concept of blockchain and the possibility to define identity with the blockchain was a very, very good case to experiment with this. But it's as I said, these concepts are all pilot projects we do, but they are the production environments are mainly financial. So it's fintech applications. But that's not my question, because for fintech for us it's also startup trying to find some credible use case which you can play this, you can watch AI implement this. That's a good idea. So that's what the containers that temporarily become kind of owner or responsible for the even for the insurance of the products. But again, these are all very innovative new concepts. But you really are going to revert the financial flow in the whole ecosystem, and it's a big change. And that's so it starts with experiments.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for what you're doing is amazing. Now, for example, when talking about tokenizing an asset, as for example a building, let's let's say, for example, I will buy 20% of the building and someone else will buy 30%, plus 10, whatever. We, for example, the majority of the shareholders of the building decide how we want to create a new environment. Expand the building, whatever. Can we decentralize this? Again, an example.
Please.
We did a project together with Focus for they have a government major program. Yes, every year we have group of students in our office working projects. And they did a project on tokenizing bills. It's a very nice use case. It's very physical, very easy to understand. It was a brutal failure. Not because of the technology, not because of blockchain, but apparently there's enormous amount of regulations on real estate. Ownership, temporal, drop in transaction in itself is 0.001. But there's real estate tax. And there's no excuse for when it's happening on a blockchain to not have to pay the real estate tax. So it's transfer of ownership of real estate. And so there's a lot of things that we have to realize that in the real world can complicate things that look very easy and beautiful on a blockchain. The concepts are great. And that's also one of the main things that we learn and also we work with. We'll do survey is it's all about compliance. And the real world can be much more complex to fit, to make the blockchain than just an NFT. So that's and then yeah, about the rules. You can implement voting functions in it. And so if 25% of the owners want something to happen, they can call a voting round and then 70% accept it, something can happen. But still, also the concept of smart contract, it's typically something we put in a smart contract. Smart contracts are a genius concept, but for many things they don't work. Again, because the real world is much more complex than the digital world. There's so many things that can happen that you did not think of while making your contract. They need a lot of exceptions. So in our case, with the elder, for example, we use the probability of this function, this contract, more like function that we can call, but not we do not go for the DAOs or the complete self-containing smart contracts. There's too many exceptions with this now. And just to add on to that, in this case, we did implement a voting service under a style blockchain, where you can essentially vote with the tokens you vote server. If you own the whole and the ballot, there's 300 of the token, and you can have a whole voting ballot with so much of the votes with 100%. So you can really build a voting service on the blockchain that is then publicly available, for instance, the results without manipulating attacks, right? That's not a private entity is done, but we work on the blockchain and everyone can verify that. And the majority of these expand the building, for example. Right? It's still a system. So that the legal data will find the resolution of the gap. And so that is the most important part of the organization. Yeah. Even if the company owns the whole building, like if the company is the owner of the whole building, and like each other, the one carbon will start like with the people, so the example, really being red saying to my attitude, next person, and it's not. One of the things that these students also came up with very smart ideas, of course. The whole building is put in a legal entity, and then will be we issue shares for the legal entity. But in the end, that also then goes somewhere. So, because there's a lot of real world and project financing. Yeah, and then it's possible that function authorities to be regulated. Yeah, this is the whole like deal now with three, right? Like in order to escape Web three, like is the biggest conflict is the merge between the real world and real decentralized. Yeah. That's why also we are now in the phase of having a one of the development is to be a full regulated human issues for the European context. Because a lot of our partners they have beautiful ideas, they have very good markets, but that burden of the regulation, the regulated part is so much that it's very difficult to find track in it. And we also trying to help in that part to help by taking the part of the regulatory burden to us. And the training for the financial institutions, together with the other foundation, what we call bonds, and because financial structures are very difficult to be competitive for small companies. And if you look at the help, if you need to have solutions. So the partners we work with, yeah, they are they should have a license for are already regulated. For example, when you work with the bank, or an exchange, and this is not a license. So I have a question regarding the conference of power setting.
Yeah.
Other guys say we should be the engaged partner and how we make sure that what they bring about is actually what's going on.
Okay. So basically, this comes back, let's say, to why are we using the blockchain and what's the use case of the blockchain? Because in order for you to be able to issue, let's say, carbon offsetting tokens, you need to have a license to do so. And this license, you do not get it from the blockchain, but you get it from a regulator in your country, right? And the way we've designed our system is one party is actually allowed to issue, let's say, tokens on behalf of, let's say, either a forest in Germany or a forest in the Netherlands or whatever, but this is, let's say, the party that has the license to issue those tokens. And then there's also, let's say, the parties that have to come and do the audit on, let's say, this company that's behaving. So the way we use our blockchain is to execute, let's say, atomic transactions and to enable, let's say, increased liquidity to come into this market. But we are not, let's say, providing you with a license to trade carbon, and we're not providing you with a license to do e-money. We're just enabling you with a technology that makes this process much more efficient and much more effective, and that's it. I mean, that's it. It's
First of all, specialists in the CO2 markets, the role here, the trustee role depends on the type of markets who have happened. Traditional financial markets, it's really, whether it can be a bank or regulated. On a festival where you issue beer points, it's just a festival.
Yeah.
And so it really depends on the scale. Looking at for the insects markets, it's developed. It's still a new market. The offsets market is already much more regulated. certain kind of activities with certifying projects and so on. And seems to be the answer that, for example.
Yep.
And that's not a, we have a generic infrastructure for the different use cases. I'm paying today, so sorry about that. But what I actually, I know that you said this we work for party assigned to do something. Is this a project that you yourself? I'm sorry, if what can the business case, how do you make money out of this system? And will sustain itself without paying. Nexus is a backend system, is a platform that helps to connect with this blockchain to manage your ecosystem. It has its own backend portal, but more important that it's API based. So our partners, our clients, build on top of these APIs. Often they have already their own systems coming from their own world ecosystem. Often also it's so new they build something new. Or in one of the was just an app, it's a payment. It's just a mobile app using the API to connect. Our vision is providing this backend system and having a very tiny fee per transaction, per acting. So it's a SaaS solution, software as a service. So in the backend, we report the staff or whatever is in there. But it's it's put there by our partners, and also the output should be like that. And you can trust what's happening because it's transparently on this public or private option. Yeah, if you and everybody is transparent. Yeah, and that's why if farmers use private in your words, it means that in the end they will lose their customers. Because then it has no value so for them. Our partners make sure that they have trust use, providing trust to the things that they do. And for example, with this stable partners, one of the partners is the BDO, it's an accountancy firm. They can do real-time audits. They can look on the bank account where your money is being stored, and they can look real-time to the blockchain how much tokens for that time has been issued. In real time, it's a real-time, and you cannot do it because it's all blockchain. Do you like the stablecoin is 100% collateralized by everyone like money? The stablecoin will provide with the e-money business. It's really it's backed, it's regulated, so it's backed by euros in this case on a bank account with a trust. In a legal percentage, or it's legal by law, it's more than 100%. More than mix. It's 102%.
It's tokenizing money. We're tokenizing the money that sits on the bank account. The same way you would tokenize carbon savings.
It's a completely regulated, it's completely regulated. And so it's a 100% push. Is it valid someone could verify like I mean in the external world someone could match all the total money on the blockchain and the total amount of money there's in the bank verify that? Yeah, in our case the BDO they can check on the bank account and they can people the blockchain and they can in real time. And they even were thinking of creating completely services for this with even live red, yellow, green lights. You can trust it or not. So that's it's really regulated money with the law. And that's been 100%. It's never allowed. I know it's actually the carbon percent. So a lot of these carbon reductions happen over time, right? You can switch an engine into a car. In a car, we can add fuel in a truck, etc. But only at the moment you are using it. A lot of the proof is off-chain. So how do you get this off-chain information integrated into the blockchain? Because this is like a constant flow of information that will, basically power your tokens, right? What's your view?
Okay, so my answer to that is, say, we in blockchain believe that blockchain is a payment system, right? So the reason why you would need a blockchain is to execute payments between parties, transactions. And in other type of information is, let's say, it's not efficient to record it on the blockchain. This should be recorded with the issuer of said token, and their role is to be able to calculate, monetize, tokenize, let's say, the carbon savings that is being created according to, let's say, the rules that they have to follow that are outlined by the, let's say, EU, the US, or whatever regulator they are operating under. And so this information is, let's say, and their ability to keep this information true and valid is their business model, right? So you would not want to invest in, let's say, someone who creates a carbon savings initiative, but then ends up, let's say, fooling you or recording general information. And once this information is made public, let's say, the market would automatically correct for it. But this is outside the blockchain. Blockchain is, it enables you, let's say, the way we create our systems is to enable you to create, let's say, the atomic transaction between carbon savings and real money. And that's it.
Maybe to add on top, what you're referring to is what they call in the blockchain, they call the concept of the oracle. Oracle is a external system or entity that has trust one way or another to issue new tokens or initiate transactions. And in this case, it could be that there will be many small fundings, many small issuing of a certain token type. But still, it's again the trust. So someone has to provide the trust to that oracle, and this is not just creation of tokens without real tokens. You always end up with some organization that will provide it such. And in regulated environments, this is typically a central bank or other regulator. In environments with less clear regulation, it could also be a genuine trusted person or a genuine trusted company or, for example, a notary or an accountancy firm. Okay, so that's on the inbound side. On the outbound, so you have all these carbon tokens, and you're a large corporate, you have your auditors checking your carbon footprints. So will they go into your wallet then, or how do they prove or see, or how can they go into the blockchain and see what's happening? Because a lot of corporates have now to wallets, they maybe partly heard about tokens. Do you have an idea about that? Because in the D2C market, with all the crypto guys and girls, I can see having those wallets, but in the corporate world, it's not much there yet.
That's true. That's true. I mean, that's, let's say, depending on, but then here, let's say, this is a question about who is offering those tokens, who is offering, let's say, this service to enable you to trade those tokens. and it's something that they have to, let's say, create a user interface, a user experience that actually is custom made for, let's say, the people who are using it, not something that's similar to a MetaMask. It's, let's say, the issuer who has, let's say, to create a website where you go and you create a user account, you buy the tokens, and then they're visible. Now, the auditors wishing to, let's say, be able to see this mapping of, let's say, Nestle bought, just as an example, bought 100 tokens from, I don't know, someone who's cleaning up the canals in Amsterdam. Now, these public and these addresses are mapped, let's say, that this address, this wallet holder is Nestle, this wallet holder is someone who's cleaning up the canals, and then transactions are visible on chain. So we're creating the system on the Algorand blockchain, which is a public blockchain. Information is publicly available.
In fact, this problem is the problem that is solved by our partners. Because that's really how to translate this this very digital representations into something their customers can work with. I can imagine that a lot of companies don't want to track what they are not having data. We know. That's why we can also run directly on private blockchains. And in this case, private blockchains we define as working blockchains managed by some entities together. And it's not public, so not everybody can.
Don't you agree that the concept of trading carbon savings and helping the environment should be made public?
For this, I really
yeah.
There are also solutions points where this will not happen. And by the way, the trend of the last 2 years, if you see that more and more projects that start as projects that would run on a private blockchain, private system, are moving towards the public blockchain. Because technology-wise, it's almost the same, but apparently it's much more difficult to start a consortium with all the legal agreements involved than to agree to run on the public blockchain and accept that not everything is perfect and you cannot hide everything what's happening. Yeah. So you see a movement toward the public blockchain. Well, it's a big issue regarding transparency procedure. So you should discuss on ESG business. There's an emerging movement of ESG accounting, but it's not really working because we don't yet agree on what we do. And it's one of the European discussion about small power plants. Now it's really easy, right? It's always a matter of definition. And do you ever hear about peak hydrogen? Yeah, hydrogen is by nuclear power.
Any more questions? This is a very interesting discussion, I think, no?
But do you also find some inspiration because again I'm very young people enthusiast. Do you find any inspiration from like DAOs, like also because there's so many green DAOs and also try to do the same because we're in contact for example with Stuka or the chair or the seller, yeah, the approach because trying to find partnership. And because they're much more strategic, because you're much more professional, pragmatic, and thoughtful about how to do it correctly. Exactly. So you do it painful ways and do it more happily. But because I hear, and again, I'm not a professional, I'm just trying to understand. Yeah, I guess the idea is that, but the key bottleneck is that we as countries complicated our world and complicate our life. Yeah? But there's other countries who made it simpler, Liechtenstein, Switzerland, Portugal, for trying to make it more transparent, easier. Yeah? Do you believe that the key bottleneck or the key showstopper is legislation or maturity of companies, environment, everything? So what will make it $1 million idea or whatever legislation or people understanding it. Because work with sustainability everything. Yeah? But for example, what we had a problem in our company, we could not claim that our factory is green and our brand is green because we could not calculate how much is it was green energy, how much is it. And this is a problem because then you just do something to invest and you don't get benefit of it. What is your what will be the next one? The in the end, it's the connection between the real world and the blockchain that's the bottleneck. As I said before, this formal role, you always need a way to provide trust to things going into the blockchain. And you cannot solve that in the blockchain itself. And you cannot solve it with a DAO. And so pure DAO approach, we don't believe in it. And you can have that in pure digital environments, but not in environments where you have a connection to it. And solving that legislation, on the one hand, legislation can help. Also, things can also be simplified. But without good legislation, there's also no trust. It's, yeah, so there's no good or bad there. But you need to find the trust somewhere. And in finance, in the end, it's central bank. And in CO2, in offsets or insets, it can also be other entities. Just not the big account or the kind of we know. It's something like because for example, I will put down weak areas that we have the certification, then we have people sure to contain this executive board. So we say if you get our permission to say that you make a sort, we kind of forward. Yeah, so the future of this is creation of this eco source, but for still doing it. Yeah. Very painful that some of the tries to describe that evidence that we can use to create a better view on the world. Let's say on the chat your way you manage your green side of your companies. That's really the show. That's the I don't know every day but it's connected to the analysis and then then verify. There's quite complex solutions already available for all kind of brands and all kind of business. And but it's a long process. And, yeah. And it's good really a part of standardizing and making because without standards there's no liquidity. You need to have standards. And standardization is also a measure of maturity of